Alright, I love this issue. This is issue 152 of the Avengers. And I admit, maybe the odds were stacked in its favour when it has a man in a chicken costume on the cover. This is Black Talon, and I must say, of all the chicken-themed Marvel bad guys, he is my favourite. I legitimately have a lot of fondness and nostalgia for this issue. I think it is great. I love the Jack Quimby cover. I love Black Talon. And I love Wonder Man's original green costume. What may alarm you is to learn the credits. This is Steve Englehart and Gerry Conway. I was originally under the impression Jimothy Shooter was also involved, but that was the previous issue. And maybe I was just trying to mentally justify enjoying this issue. Here is what happened. Steve Englehart is credited with plot. The plot is definitely Here is where we get into my deductions. Steve Englehart not only did the plot, but the artists started doing the art for the issue, and some of the first pages he completed are actually scripted by Steve Englehart. There are a couple at the back that I would wager money were scripted by him, and there are a few other pages where it's likely him. But then Gerry Conway became editor-in-chief of Marvel. Please go and watch my reviews of Gerry Conway's short run on Defenders, where I explain how he took over as editor-in-chief and then got fired within a space of months for being a shithead. Anyway, yeah, he was editor-in-chief and he kicked most of the writers off their books so he could instead write them and bring in a bigger paycheck. That is why every Marvel book in the mid-70s has a few issues by Gerry Conway, and then he is gone. This is also an ample time to actually address something I have mentioned in passing a lot, and that is the notion of writer-editors and them being bad. Basically, a writer-editor means that the book has no quality control. There is no one second guessing or correcting things. In this case, all Gerry Conway cares about is getting the book to press because his chief concern is as editor-in-chief, as well as him being the writer and editor of this. And I am not dumping on Gerry Conway just because it's Gerry Conway. I really believe he was the worst writer-editor around. Down here, and this is just one single panel, we have two mistakes, and they are far from the only mistakes in this issue. There are characters being called the wrong names. There's typos. There's all sorts. But here we have both Hank Gordon being miscoloured. His chest is coloured all yellow when it's meant to be black like his shoulder pieces. And we have the word definitely being misspelled as definitely. Sort of linked to this panel, Throughout Gary Conman's 5 issues on Avengers, he consistently gets these two characters' surnames confused because they are both called Hank. It is a shame to focus on this because I do like this issue in spite of its faults. Our plot is Wonder Man has returned from the dead. I will do a quick info dump on Wonder Man since there isn't much before this. Wonder Man, he was a one-off Silver Age opponent of the Avengers. He was introduced in Avengers issue 9 by Stanley Lee and the dawn of the Eck family mafia, but he was designed by Jack Quimby. Wonder Man was empowered by the Masters of Evil to destroy the Avengers, and there's Amanda the Enchanter. And the plan was that Wonder Man would infiltrate the team, join in their ranks, and then betray them. In the end, when his duplicity is discovered, he eventually sides with the Avengers, who he observed were well-meaning heroes, and he dies sacrificing himself for them. And I made a promise with myself to not get into another rousing rant about Wonder Man's official membership with the Avengers. But Wonder Man stayed dead. He was later obviously used as the basis for both the Vision and the motivation for Jim Reaper. He did get resurrected for a brief spark with the Avengers as a member of the Legion of the Unliving. But it was here where we finally got Wonder Man back to life. And when Jimothy Shooter takes over writing the series after Gary Conman, that is when we start to really develop Wonder Man as a character. I do really like Wonder Man, at least Wonder Man of this period, before David Miscellaneous introduced the acting and the goofy comedy stuff. Also, he is wearing his green costume in this, which I love. Green is my favourite colour, which might explain it, but I love the design for some unexplainable reason. The Avengers, with Wonder Man's body, they gan in search of whoever is responsible for resurrecting him. This takes them to New Orleans, obviously, because voodoo. And we have this nice downtime sequence with Hank Gordon and Wasps. Really good. And I think it might be Gary Conman. I'm not sure. It could be either of them. But I am inclined to say Gary Conman because Steve Englehart didn't particularly like Hank Gordon. Really, I just love this issue. I didn't have much to say besides this is more or less what I like about the Avengers. The team ganning off and fighting a bad guy, with the hook being the resurrection of Wonder Man. Little bits of character along the way. A panel like this where you can imagine Captain America saying, "Avengers, assemble," even though he doesn't say it on the panel. So the Avengers, they are searching for the voodoo priest who brought Wonder Man back to life. And we get some bits with the Vision worrying about what Wonder Man's return means for him. And I am sorry if my supposed review is reverting to me simply saying I love this issue, but I really do. And here we have Wonder Man walking in a trance, and they are following him back to his master. As with any Avengers issue that I love, I think Kurt Busey retconned all of this. Then we finally get to the Chicken Man, Black Talon. I like this bad guy, probably because of my fondness for this issue and his part in Wonder Man's return. But almost everybody else sees the Chicken Man and thinks that he's a big joke. Not many writers have taken him seriously after this, which is a shame because there is nothing invalid about voodoo as a bad guy's power. The best and most interesting thing done with the character after this was in Marvel Zombies 4, where he was a drug baron who used voodoo slaves to help his trade. The other thing about the Chicken Man is that in true writer-editor fashion, he is miscoloured up here. And not just then, but he is actually miscoloured several more times. But this page here and the next one is Steve Englehart. And you can tell it is Steve Englehart because of how Charlotte Witch is written. Steve Englehart was all about expanding and exploring Charlotte Witch's affinity for magic and her witchy nature. That is all here. Then the last page is definitely Gerry Conway. And not just because it abruptly ends, or because he suddenly writes a character out of the book randomly, but Charlotte Witch's attack between pages, it goes from being a magic witch attack to being her muty magic powers. Anyway, we find out that Black Talon was a patsy and someone else got him involved in Wonder Man. It was Jim Reaper and Ultron. Or, if you only subscribe to Kurt Busey's version of comics, it was all smoke and mirrors and Wonder Man was never dead anyway. So, Charlotte Witch decides she is leaving the team because Gerry Conway wants rid of her. There are a lot of not so flattering things about this issue, but I can't help but enjoy it. I didn't like Steve Englehart or Gerry Conway, but maybe in a moment of sheer luck, the two of them managed to do something a bit harmonious for me. I have got some big first appearances in my comic book collection. Issues that are worth lots of money. But I think I would personally assign more worth to this issue. It has to be a 7 thumbs up.